Retirez-vous!
On the 1st of March 1815, Napoleon returned from exile. Knowing that the French people would likely rally to Napoleon's new cause, King Louis XVIII fled from Paris soon after news of Napoleon's return reached him. On the 13th of March 1815, 6 days before Napoleon reached Paris, the powers at the Congress of Vienna declared him an outlaw. 4 days later, the United Kingdom, Russia, Austria, and Prussia bound themselves to put 150,000 men each into the field to end his rule. An invasion of France was planned for the 1st of July 1815. Napoleon knew that once his attempts at dissuading one or more of the 7th Coalition allies from invading France had failed, his only chance of remaining in power was to attack before the coalition could put together an overwhelming force. If he could destroy the existing coalition forces south of Brussels before they were reinforced, he might be able to drive the British back to the sea and knock the Prussians out of the war. The Prussian army under the command of Field Marshal Gebhard Leberecht von Blücher, and the British multinational army under the command of Arthur Wellesley, the 1st Duke of Wellington, were in Belgium. Napoleon decided that these would be his first targets. He aimed to destroy these armies before the Austrians or Russians were prepared for war. With Wellington in the west and Blücher in the east, Napoleon planned to cut off the armies from each other and defeat them one at a time before they could join together against him. On the 15th of June, Napoleon advanced into Belgium and started to create a wedge between them. He planned to defeat the Prussians first and then turn his focus onto the British. Napoleon divided his 130,000-man-strong army of the north in three. Ney would command the left wing, Manuel de Grouchy would command the right wing, and Napoleon would take the center. Napoleon dispatched a force under the command of Ney to seize the crossroads at Quatre-Bras. However, Ney's slow advance allowed the British to reinforce this position. Ney's troops attacked this area in an attempt to take it from British hands. After a day of fighting, the British still held this area. The Prussians had moved 3 corps into position for battle and were awaiting the arrival of a 4th Corps and their English allies. Napoleon had no intention of allowing them to gather their forces and so launched the attack that afternoon. He sent 60,000 troops to attack Blücher's 82,000-man Prussian army at Ligny. The French plan was for the cavalry to pin the Prussian forces on the right. Meanwhile, the 3rd and 4th Corps would attack the center.
Oui, monsieur. Scharfschützen en position, sir. Missile. Qu'est-ce qu'on fait?
Fierce combat broke out in the streets.
Ruhig bleiben, keine Panik.
The Prussians fought ferociously, and the villages of Ligny and Saint-Amand-la-Haye changed hands repeatedly. But by 5 in the afternoon, all of the Prussian forces were committed to battle while the French reserve force was still uncommitted and fresh, eager for battle. It was at this point in the battle that Napoleon saw that the Prussians were massing on the right flank. He knew that if he could take over the Prussian defensive position in Ligny, he would be able to surround and trap this mass of men. He selected General Jean-Baptiste Durand to move his men to the Prussian rear and cut off their line of retreat. As he marched out, to Napoleon's horror, he saw that General Durand started to march the wrong way. This was because, on Napoleon's left flank, General Ney had called upon General Durand to help assist him at Quatre-Bras. Napoleon saw that the Prussians had started to retreat. This was bad news for him, as he could not let them join up with another coalition force and so had to defeat them decisively. This was especially infuriating for Napoleon, as he had ordered General Durand to block off the exact route the Prussians were using to retreat. Napoleon still had the Imperial Guard in reserve, and around 7:30 that evening he sent them on a direct assault against the Prussians in and around Ligny. Napoleon's Imperial Guard seemed to be too much for Prussians. The Prussian line wavered and broke. But Marshal Blücher was not going to give up. He charged forward with cavalry in a last attempt at a counterattack. But the French Imperial Guard fought the Prussians off. Blücher's horse was shot from under him and he was thrown to the ground. The French passed by without realizing the Prussian commander was on the ground next to them. In the end, some of Blücher's men freed him and they escaped. Blücher escaped capture and was determined to support the Duke of Wellington in battle, even though the English had not arrived to support him at Ligny. General von Gneisenau took over command in his place for the time being, as Blücher was too injured to continue commanding. He ordered a Prussian retreat, where they would withdraw and then wait for reinforcements. By the end of the day, the town of Ligny was in ruin. The French had suffered 9,000 wounded, dead or captured troops. The Prussians had suffered 16,000 killed or wounded, and they also lost 27 cannons to the French. Napoleon had defeated the Prussians and captured Ligny. However, he did not defeat the Prussians decisively, who were easily able to reform their army at Wavre, which is close to Waterloo. Napoleon thought that the Prussians had been knocked out of the war. This victory for Napoleon allowed him to concentrate his forces against the British army under the Duke of Wellington. Napoleon, with the reserve and the right wing of the Army of the North, made a late start on the 17th of June and joined Ney at Quatre-Bras at 1 p.m. to attack Wellington's army, but found only the rearguard of cavalry remaining on the site. The French pursued Wellington to Waterloo, but managed only to defeat a small cavalry rearguard in an action at Genappe before torrential rain set in for the night. By the end of the 17th of June, Wellington's army had arrived at its position at Waterloo, with the main body of Napoleon's army following. Before leaving Ligny, Napoleon gave Grouchy 33,000 men and orders to follow the retreating Prussians. A late start, uncertainty about the direction the Prussians had taken, and the vagueness of the orders given to Grouchy meant that he was too late to prevent the Prussian army from reaching Wavre. The Prussians were able to form a defensive position at Wavre and prevent the smaller French army from reaching Waterloo. After the French defeat at Waterloo, only Grouchy managed to retreat in good order to France with his force of nearly 30,000 organized French soldiers with their artillery. Napoleon announced his abdication on the 24th of June 1815 and finally surrendered on the 15th of July.